Everything felt normal that morning. Coffee brewing. Sunlight through the kitchen. A quiet house. But within 5 minutes, my entire world started to unravel. The moment I picked them up, I knew something was off. I was grabbing a fresh shirt from the laundry room when a pair of boxer briefs slipped off the edge of the basket. Navy blue. Lacoste. I hadn't worn Lacoste since my 30s. I held them up, turning them over like they might reveal some kind of explanation. They were definitely men's, definitely worn, and definitely not mine. I walked out into the hallway, the fabric still clutched in my hand like a live grenade. "Alyssa!" I called out. She was in the kitchen, leaning over the island, sipping one of her green juice smoothies. Her hair was pinned back, loose strands curling around her temples. Casual, effortless beauty. She looked up, all smiles, until her eyes dropped to what I was holding. "Oh," she said. "Those? They're Logan's, babe. I must have accidentally grabbed them when I was doing your laundry." I blinked. "Why would Logan's boxers be in our laundry?" She shrugged like it was the most normal thing in the world. "I don't know, maybe he threw them in the wrong hamper. He's still getting used to the house again." Then she grinned, almost amused. "What, you jealous or something?" She reached across the island and playfully tapped my hand, trying to pluck the boxers away. I let her take them, but my stomach was in knots. That smile. It was too smooth. We'd been married 5 years. I was 52, CEO of a real estate development firm that built luxury properties up and down the West Coast. Alyssa was in her mid-30s. She had this easy charm, like she could win over an entire room just by saying hi. Everyone told me I was lucky. Truthfully, I agreed for a while. Logan had moved back in about a month ago. My son from my first marriage. 22, taking a break from grad school after switching programs. It was supposed to be temporary. A few months, max. Alyssa insisted it was good for the family. Let him reset. It'll give us all a chance to reconnect. She played the part of the understanding stepmom. Made him breakfast, laughed at his jokes, encouraged him to open up emotionally. I thought she was just trying to be supportive. But lately, something was off. She started sleeping in later, staying up after I went to bed. Once or twice, I caught the glow of her phone lighting up the hallway through the crack under our door at 1 a.m. And then there was that call. A few nights back, I walked past her office on my way to grab a bottle of water. She didn't see me. The door was cracked just enough. She was whispering into her phone, smiling like a schoolgirl. "I miss you too." He's clueless. "I know, but we have to be careful." I stood there frozen, listening. She laughed, soft and low. "You're so bad. If he ever found out, he'd probably burn the whole house down." I backed away before she noticed me. My heart was pounding, but my mind was racing faster. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I called someone who owed me a favor. His name was Connor Fisk. Private investigator. Ex-cop. Retired early. He'd helped me handle a legal situation years ago with a former business partner. Discreet. Efficient. Cold as ice. "I need you to look into my wife," I said. He didn't ask why. "Send me her schedule, plates, routines. I'll start tomorrow." That was 5 days ago. Tonight, I was sitting in my home office, sifting through emails when Connor's message came through. Subject line, "Update, thought you should see this." I opened it, and my breath caught. There were 5 photos, all time-stamped, all taken outside the Marriott downtown. Alyssa, in heels and a coat I'd never seen before, stepping out of an Uber at 11:47 p.m. Then again, entering the hotel lobby. Alone. Next shot. Leaving 4 hours later. Hair tousled. No coat. Her makeup slightly smeared. Another angle from the parking garage. She's not alone. She's walking beside a man, broad-shouldered, taller than her, but his back is to the camera. No face. No clear profile. Just shadows. And the last photo, her smiling, laughing, like she didn't have a care in the world. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. She was cheating. But with who? And why did the back of that man feel vaguely familiar? My hands clenched into fists, then relaxed. My instincts told me not to confront her. Not yet. The game had just begun, and she didn't even know I was playing. I stared at that blurry silhouette beside my wife, and had no idea that when the truth came out, it would destroy far more than just my marriage. I didn't breathe a word. Not about the hotel photos. Not about the phone calls. Not even about the boxers. I figured if I played it cool, kept smiling, kept pretending, she'd get sloppy. She'd slip. And when she did, I'd be ready with proof so damning. She'd walk away with nothing but regret. That was the plan. But Alyssa, she had a plan of her own. The knock came on a Thursday morning. I was in the middle of a conference call with investors when Marcy, my assistant, buzzed in. "Michael, there's a process server here. Says it's urgent." My gut twisted. When I opened the door, the guy didn't even blink. "Michael Carrington?" he asked flatly. "Yes. You've been served." He handed me a thick envelope, turned, and walked out like it was just another Tuesday. I already knew what it was, but I wasn't prepared for how bad it would be. Inside, divorce petition, filed by Alyssa Carrington. Grounds? Emotional cruelty, psychological intimidation, and financial control. She claimed she feared for her safety, that I was increasingly paranoid, verbally aggressive, and erratic in behavior. There was a temporary restraining order request. She wanted me out of the house. Immediately, she was also filing for full custody of my daughter from a previous marriage. Alyssa had helped raise her. Spousal support at $18,000 a month. 50% of my company. Stating she'd been instrumental in helping it grow. I stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. I couldn't even process it. She hadn't confronted me, hadn't asked for counseling, hadn't even hinted at a problem. And now, I was a villain in a story I didn't even know we were telling. My lawyer, Daniel Reese, nearly dropped his coffee when I showed him the documents. "She filed first? That's bad, Michael. Real bad." "She made it all up," I snapped. "I've never touched her. Never yelled at her. Never." Daniel held up a hand. "It doesn't matter. Not yet. When someone files first, especially with abuse claims, they control the narrative. You're already on defense." He flipped through the paperwork, skimming quickly. "She's painting you as an unhinged control freak," he muttered. "This isn't just about money. This is character assassination." I stood, pacing. She's up to something. She's always 5 steps ahead. I should have seen this coming. Daniel closed the folder. "If the court believes her, you don't just lose your company. You lose your kid, your reputation, everything." And then came the kicker. At the bottom of the document, attorney of record Miles B. Reynolds. I'd never heard the name, but the photo on the firm's website stopped me cold. The guy looked familiar. Too familiar. Not from business. Not from school. No, it was something more recent. Something I couldn't quite place. His eyes. That cocky grin. Like he'd already won. The house was quiet when I got back home that night. Alyssa was in the kitchen, barefoot, sipping white wine like nothing happened. She didn't even flinch when I walked in. She turned slowly, the same smug smile she gave me every time I tried to read her. "Long day?" she asked. I didn't respond, just stared at her. She took another sip. "You'll thank me when it's all over. Really, this isn't about punishment, Michael. It's about freedom." She walked past me like I was invisible. I didn't sleep that night. My head spun with timelines, loopholes, memories, trying to figure out when she started building this case. And why now? It wasn't until the next morning that the real blow landed. My CFO called me in a panic. "Did you approve this?" she asked, forwarding me the alert. Attached, a document showing a $200,000 personal line of credit drawn against Carrington Properties business account, co-signed by me and Alyssa, dated 6 weeks ago, weeks before she filed. I felt my blood go cold. She didn't just plan to leave me. She planned to bleed me dry first. I hung up the phone and stared out my office window, realizing too late, I wasn't in a marriage. I was in a setup, and the trap had already closed. When the court order hit my inbox, I couldn't breathe. Emergency temporary custody granted. Alyssa Carrington. Effective immediately, I was not allowed to see or contact my daughter, unless supervised by a court-appointed liaison. I stood there, staring at my laptop like it had personally punched me in the gut. 9 years old. My little girl. My whole damn world. Now under the care of a woman I didn't even recognize anymore. She claimed I was dangerous. Daniel? I snapped during a late-night meeting in my lawyer's office. Volatile. Paranoid. Even said I punched a hole in the wall. Which never happened, by the way. Daniel looked up from the motion. She submitted photos. A dent in drywall near the stairs. I laughed bitterly. You mean the one Logan made when he tripped last year? I kept it as a reminder that he needed to slow down on the stairs. She's recontextualizing everything, Daniel said flatly. That's her entire strategy. Not just to take your money, but to paint you as a threat. And the court believed it? Daniel rubbed his eyes. In emergency custody motions, they err on the side of caution. For now, she controls the narrative. I clenched my fists. So what the hell do I do? Daniel leaned in. We get dirt. Real dirt. Something that'll bury her credibility. We need to know who she's with, where that $200,000 is going, and what she's hiding. Because no woman burns a life like this unless she's building another one somewhere else. The next few days felt like walking through fog. I stayed out of the house. No point being there, now that Alyssa had essentially claimed it as hers. I moved into a furnished corporate apartment across town. Empty walls, cold sheets, silence, and worst of all, no daughter to tuck in at night. I missed her laugh, her morning cereal slurping, the way she'd sneak into my office during Zoom calls just to draw on my legal pads. She didn't even know what was happening, only what Alyssa told her, which terrified me more than anything. Meanwhile, Logan was drifting. He stopped responding to my texts, missed 2 family dinners, claimed he was busy with applications. But he didn't even pretend to care anymore. When I finally cornered him, caught him in the garage, loading up his gym bag, he barely looked me in the eye. Hey, I said, got a minute? Not really, he muttered. Supposed to meet up with some friends. I stepped in front of him. What's going on, Logan? You haven't talked to me in a week. He shifted his weight, annoyed. Look, I'm trying to stay out of it, all right? You and Alyssa have your issues. I'm not picking sides. I'm not asking you to pick sides, I said, voice low. I'm asking you to be honest. Something's off. With her. With you. You're not the same kid who moved back home last month. He finally looked up. Something flashed across his face. Anger, maybe. Or guilt. But it was gone in an instant. You know, Dad, he said, not everything revolves around you. Maybe she just got tired of walking on eggshells. He shoved past me. And that's when it hit me. That wasn't just distance. That was loyalty. To her. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced the apartment for hours, thinking. Replaying conversations. Timelines. Her lies. Logan's shifts. The $200,000. The photos. The restraining order. The court filings. Something wasn't adding up. She had money. She had legal firepower. She had a plan. But what she didn't know was that I had already taken the first countermeasure. Connor, the private investigator, had been watching her ever since the hotel photos.
Discret surveillance.
Financial records. Phone pings. Trash pulls. The works. And then, the break. He called the next morning. Michael, he said, his voice cool and casual. Need you to swing by my office. You're gonna want to see this in person. I drove straight over. Connor dropped a sealed evidence bag on the desk in front of me. Inside, a pink iPhone with a cracked corner. Where'd you get this? I asked. Your wife's gym bag, he said. She left it in the locker room at Eastfield Fitness. It's not her main phone. She's got another line. Totally off the grid. He slid a USB flash drive toward me. Texts are copied here. Backups too. I plugged it into my laptop and opened the folder. Within seconds, I was staring at a string of messages so explicit, so deliberate, they made my skin crawl. From someone saved as simply, El. Last night was insane. Still can't believe we pulled it off under his nose. You're the only one who gets me. He never did. I dream about that cabin. Just you and me. No more secrets. You taste like fire, El. I crave it every night. The timestamps matched perfectly with the nights I was on business trips. The days I came home and she smelled like a stranger. The photos left nothing to interpretation. Her body, in lingerie I'd never seen. Him, still a mystery. Most shots were tight, cropped, face hidden. But in one, a faint reflection in the mirror. A man, shirtless, lean, young. Something in my chest twisted. The initials L haunted me. I had a sick feeling I already knew who it was. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling, the taste of bile in my throat. Because if L was who I thought it was, then this wasn't just betrayal. This was war inside my own bloodline. I used to think losing money was the worst thing that could happen to a man. That was before I started losing everything else. My business, my daughter, my son. My grip on what was real. It started with a simple login attempt. Access denied. Then a call from my bank manager. Mr. Carrington, we just want to confirm that you authorized the transfer of $86,400 to Ms. Alyssa Carrington's new account this morning? I felt my stomach turn. I didn't approve anything. A pause. Well, your name's on the joint account, sir. And she had proper credentials. Joint, right? Still joint. I hadn't even had time to restructure the accounts since the divorce filing. That afternoon, my Amex was declined while paying for lunch with a prospective investor. Then came the emails. Suddenly, longtime business partners were backing out of deals. 3 different developers had pulled funding on projects slated for Q4. The headline on the local business blog said it all. Carrington empire shaken by scandal. Abuse allegations, frozen assets, and a $200,000 mystery withdrawal. And just like that, the empire I spent 20 years building was in free fall. Legal fees were mounting. I had to liquidate 2 properties just to stay above water. Daniel, my attorney, was blunt on the call. You need to prepare for the possibility that she walks away with half the company. Based on what? I snapped. She just filed a motion claiming she was a strategic advisor. Says she contributed to the marketing, branding, and client acquisition strategy. She was a yoga instructor before we met. Daniel sighed. Well, now she's a co-founder, on paper. I closed my eyes. This is madness. No, Daniel said. This is strategy. She's not just trying to leave you. She's trying to take your identity with her. The one thing keeping me sane was Connor, the PI. He worked quietly, ruthlessly, and finally he delivered. You're gonna want to sit down for this, he said. He laid a folder on the table, full of surveillance photos, phone records, call logs. One of them made me blink twice. Alyssa, having dinner at the Fountain Hotel's rooftop lounge, with Miles B. Reynolds, her divorce attorney. They've been involved for over a year, Connor said. We found hotel check-ins, secret dinner reservations, even a vacation in the Caymans last spring. I stared at the photo. Her hand was resting on Miles' thigh. He was feeding her creme brulee. She weaponized her own affair into legal leverage, I said quietly. Connor smirked. Oh, you haven't heard the best part. He slid over a flash drive. A friend at the phone company intercepted a call between the 2 of them. It's not admissible in court. But it's one hell of a nuke in the court of public opinion. I plugged it into my laptop and hit play. Her voice, light, giddy. He still has no clue. It's almost too easy, babe. His voice followed. Let him fight. We'll bury him with his own money. He thinks he's still in control, but we've already won. I sat back in my chair, jaw clenched. They were playing me like a board game. But this piece, this recording, this could change everything. I was ready to use it. I had a strategy, a timeline. I would take this to Daniel first thing in the morning. Leak it if I had to. Bring their entire plan crashing down. But life doesn't wait for your plans. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, expecting another lawyer. Instead, it was the school. Mr. Carrington? It's Principal Keller at Brookwood Elementary. My heart instantly dropped. Yes, is everything okay? It's about your daughter. She wasn't picked up after school today. We tried reaching Mrs. Carrington, no answer. We're required to inform Child Protective Services if a parent is more than 30 minutes late. It's been nearly 2 hours. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way. Mr. Carrington, one more thing. A staff member reported seeing a gray Mercedes circling the block around dismissal time. Your daughter confirmed it looked like Logan's car. I stopped cold. Logan? What the hell was he doing near my daughter's school? Alyssa was missing, and now so was my son. I floored it through every red light between me and the school, heart racing. Because if Logan had picked her up, then I had just lost everything to the two people I trusted most. When I arrived at the school, my daughter was sitting in the nurse's office. Backpack on her lap, swinging her feet, trying not to cry. I knelt down and hugged her, burying my face into her hair just to breathe again. She whispered, "Logan picked me up," but then Mommy called and said not to go, so I waited. I kissed her forehead. "You did exactly right, sweetheart." But inside I was imploding. I called Alyssa the moment we were in the car. She answered on the second ring. "Where the hell were you?" I growled. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Relax. I was in a meeting with Miles. Logan offered to help with pickup since you're legally not allowed within school grounds right now. He was trying to do you a favor." "You sent Logan?" She laughed softly. "Michael, are you seriously accusing me of something again? You really think I'd let anything happen to your daughter?" "You're damn right I do," I snapped. "You've been lying about everything else." A beat of silence. Then, "You need help, Michael. Real help. This paranoia of yours. It's why the judge believed me." Click. She hung up. I drove the rest of the way in silence, knuckles white on the steering wheel. When I got home, I did what I should have done weeks ago. I called Connor. "I want access to Logan's phone records," I said. "Texts, call history, everything." "You sure?" he asked. "That's your kid." "No," I said coldly. "That's her puppet." Took 3 days to get what I needed. Connor handed me a folder and slid his tablet across the table. "Start here," he said. Dozens of text messages. All between Logan and an unlisted number. Time-stamped between midnight and 3 a.m. almost every night. "He's clueless. Still thinks you're just being supportive. Can't stop thinking about the cabin. Last night was intense. You're getting bolder. Don't forget to delete these." Every time. The number had no name, no ID, just raw, explicit texts that left no room for misinterpretation. Connor leaned in. "We traced the burner. It's registered under an alias tied to a P.O. box. But the signal, same pattern. Same travel frequency." I looked up. "Where?" "A cabin," he said. "Upstate. Isolated. Private. Registered to a shell company you technically own." I blinked. "What?" He nodded. "Alyssa bought it 2 years ago. Used one of your shell LLCs from a land deal you never finalized. You signed off on the paperwork during a bundle purchase. She slid it through like a ghost property. You never noticed." I stared at him. "She's been using my money to sneak off to a place I bought? With my son?" Connor gave a small, pitiful shrug. "Seems that way." That night, Logan was gone. Not out, gone. His room was empty. Bed stripped. Drawers cleared. His laptop was missing. Even his cologne was gone from the bathroom. Only thing he left was a torn scrap of notebook paper sitting on his desk. "Don't contact me again."
No, Dad. No, sorry. No explanation.
Just cold distance. Like I was the one who had betrayed him. I sat alone in that empty room for a long time. I stared at the wall. At the chipped paint near the dresser from when we moved his stuff in together. At the photo on the shelf of us fishing years ago. When things were simple. When I believed love was enough. Now, I didn't know what to believe. The next morning, I got a call from my company's IT manager, Elliot, a genius with code, anxiety, and zero social skills. "I cracked it," he said without greeting. "Cracked what?" Alyssa's deleted iCloud backups. Took a while to get past the biometric failsafe, but the algorithm worked. He paused. There's something you need to see. I swallowed. What is it? I'm emailing a file now, he said. It was stored in a hidden photo vault, masked under old travel receipts. File name is Cabin May 4th Private. I stared at the inbox as the file began to download. A chill crept down my spine, because May 4th, that was the night she told me she was at a women's wellness retreat in Santa Monica. I remember because I'd sent her flowers. I double-clicked the video file and leaned forward, my pulse pounding in my ears, because whatever was on that screen was finally going to show me the face of the man she'd thrown our family away for. And I wasn't ready for what I was about to see. The video started with a flicker, grainy footage from a corner-mounted security cam, high inside the main living room of the cabin. I recognized the furniture immediately. Rustic pine walls, leather couch, the fireplace I'd never once sat in front of. The place I supposedly owned but had never seen. The timestamp in the corner read, May 4th, 11:12 p.m. There was no audio, just silence. And then the door opened. Alyssa stepped inside, wearing nothing but a black silk robe and red lace lingerie underneath. She pulled the robe tighter for a second, then let it slide off her shoulders and fall to the floor. My stomach turned. She walked across the room slowly, deliberately, like she was preparing for something, or someone. A moment later, the door opened again, and he stepped in, tall, shirtless, athletic. My heart slammed against my ribcage. No, God, no. The camera caught his face as he closed the door behind him. It was Logan, my son, my blood. He walked up to her like they'd done it 100 times before. They didn't hesitate, didn't talk, didn't even blink. They kissed. Not a mistake. Not a confused brush of lips. A deep, hungry, familiar kiss. His hands gripped her waist like he owned her. Her arms wrapped around his neck like they'd done this before. Couldn't look away. I didn't want to see it, but I had to. They moved to the couch. She straddled him, laughed. He whispered something in her ear, and she laughed louder. She leaned in, kissing his neck, biting, then more than I could take. I slammed the laptop shut, but it was too late. I had seen it. I had felt it. I collapsed to the floor, shaking, screaming. Every breath felt like broken glass. My body convulsed like I'd been shot, again and again by the same bullet, over and over. I crawled to the wall and curled up like a child, my back pressed against the drywall, fists clenched so hard my nails drew blood. My son, the boy I taught to swim, the kid I hugged when his mom left, the same boy I stayed up late with after his first heartbreak, telling him not all women are like that. He knew. He had to have known. There's no way you fall into bed with your father's wife by accident. There's no way you do that to someone you claim to love. I sat there for hours, until the sun came up, until the rage stopped boiling, and started freezing. The tears dried, the shame evaporated. All that remained was silence, and something else, resolve. That's when I stood up, walked to the sink, splashed cold water on my face, dried off. I picked up my phone. Hands steady now.
Nos checking.
I dialed Daniel. He answered on the first ring. Michael, I want them both destroyed, I said, my voice like stone. And I already know how, because they didn't just betray me. They declared war. And now, I'm going to show them what happens when you burn the wrong man. I gave Daniel everything. The video from the cabin. The financial records showing Alyssa's money trail, straight to Logan's offshore account in the Caymans. The phone logs, the burner texts, the proof of her year-long affair with her attorney, Miles B. Reynolds. Every wire transfer, every secret. It was all neatly organized, one hell of a war chest. Daniel didn't even blink as he skimmed through the files. We're not settling, he said. Damn right we're not. Within 72 hours, the court was flooded with lawsuits. A civil complaint for fraud, emotional abuse, and conspiracy to defame. A petition for full custody. A motion to freeze Alyssa's remaining assets. and a formal complaint to the Bar Association against Miles Reynolds. I watched her world crumble. In real time, her smug smirk in the courtroom vanished the moment Daniel played the first clip of the video. Alyssa in lingerie, Logan entering the cabin. Gasps filled the room. Alyssa's face turned sheet white. Miles stood up, trying to argue relevance. Daniel calmly laid the next bombshell on the judge's desk. Emails between Alyssa and Miles, strategizing the destruction of my reputation, while sleeping together. The judge didn't just slam the gavel. He demanded Miles be removed from the courtroom immediately and placed him under investigation for professional misconduct. Then came the subpoena. Logan was forced to testify. He walked into the courtroom with his head down, visibly shaking. Not even his expensive new suit could hide the shame. I didn't look at him. Not once. He stammered through the first few questions. But when the prosecutor hit play on the full version of the cabin video, and the screen lit up with that damning scene, he buried his face in his hands and whispered, "I'm sorry. Too late. Way too late." Within 2 weeks, Miles Reynolds was disbarred. Alyssa lost all custody rights. The court awarded me sole custody of my daughter and a public apology. Alyssa's $200,000 transfer? Reversed. Her accounts? Frozen. Her reputation? Obliterated. She walked out of that courtroom with nothing but a whisper of a name she'd once weaponized. And Logan? He disappeared. Deleted all his social accounts. Changed his number. Rumor is he moved abroad. Last I heard, he was working under an alias somewhere in Costa Rica. But that wasn't the final nail. No, that came a month later. Alyssa called me 3 times. I didn't answer. Then a text. "We need to talk.
I'm pregnant."
It's yours. I didn't reply. Instead, I had my attorney demand a court-ordered DNA test. The results? Not mine. Not Logan's. Not anyone I even knew. The man she'd sworn her soul to? Just another mark. Another lie. Another pawn in her sick little game. She had nothing left. No money.
No allies.
No love. Just a trail of shattered lives and burned bridges. Now, she works part-time at a diner in some forgotten town off Route 5. I know because she called again. Blocked number. Payphone. Somewhere outside Bakersfield. She didn't speak right away. I heard traffic. Wind. Then finally, "Michael? It's me.
I'm sorry.
I know I don't deserve it, but do you think one day you could forgive me?" She called it love. I called it treason. And now, she calls from a payphone, asking if I can forgive her. I let it ring, and ring, and ring.